Because, I mean, in those days, you know, it was all pretty embarrassing, you know, the music, you know, that they were giving us was, you know, and it was Tommy Steele, you know. And Harry Hailstone, I don't know if you remember him, you know, he came from Hale in Liverpool and he sang The Little Cow, you know. It was just wrong, you know. But that's what we were listening to, you know. Oh, little cow sitting in the field, every day I see you shudder. If you were mine, I'd take you home and love you like no other, like no other, like no other. If you were mine, I'd take you home and love you like no other.
So, John, when was the first time you met Paul? Can you remember?
It was in Liverpool, you know, at a fete. I just remember, you know, it was that.
So it was fate.
No, it was a fete in Liverpool, you know.
So it was fate at a fete.
I suppose so, you know. But yeah, I mean, he just reminded me of the king, you know, and I thought...
The king? As in Elvis?
No, the old king that died, you know. I think it was his beard. You know, he just reminded me of him, you know, and I thought, yeah, you know, let's have him in the group, you know. And then George came along, you know. He was always younger than me, you know. You know, and I do remember Mimi saying she could never get John out of the bathroom, you know.
Yes, well, my parents had exactly the same trouble with me when I was a teenager.
No, I don't mean that. What I meant was he liked the acoustics in the, you know, and he used to practice his guitar. And I don't think it pleased his Uncle George too much, to be honest with you. Ain't she sweet? I see her walking down that street. But would I ask you very confidentially, ain't she sweet? You're not so sweet though, are you, Uncle George? Can I open the window?
Paul, so is it true in those days you had a terrible time trying to find a decent drummer?
It's true, but then we found out from John that he knew somebody called Bestie. And so, you know, we told Alan.
Ah, you mean Pete Best?
Well, that's what we thought, you know, but Alan got mixed up because he wasn't the brightest spark. And he phoned George Best up. And George was a footballer. He was playing for Manchester United at the time as an apprentice. And he'd never seen a drum kit in his life. But he came down and he auditioned and it was embarrassing. But, you know, it's something that happened, you know. And we asked him later on if he'd like to be a fifth Beatle. And he said, yeah, and it was fine, you know.
I remember Paul McCartney asking me what my coordination was like, so I asked him if they had a tennis ball, you know, so I could show him what I could do.
Georgie, Georgie, they call you the Belfast boy. Georgie, Georgie, they call you the Belfast boy. They say, Georgie, Georgie, keep your feet on the ground. Georgie, Georgie, when you listen to the sound. Georgie, Georgie, put a light on your name. Play the game. Play the game, boy, play the game.
But it wasn't what they were looking for, you know.
Okay, you know, I mean, I was hurt. I can't deny it. I thought John was my friend, you know. I let him play with me scale electrics, you know. I even gave him my last Rolo, you know. But
We asked the Beatles' first manager, Alan Williams, what he really thought of John Lennon in those early days.
Well, to start with, John was always mocking me. That was the thing about him. He always mocked me day in, day out. Without
In what way did he mock you?
Well, he used to take the mickey out of my complexion for some reason. For instance, I'd say to them, I've got to go out to the Blue Angel, but I'll be back at 10 o'clock. And he'd say, we'll catch up with you then. You see what he did there? Catch up. 'Cause of the red face. I knew what he was doing. I wasn't stupid.
George, Hamburg must have been quite an experience for you.
It was a bit crazy, you know, that I have to say. In fact, Johnny was always a bit wayward anyway. I always remember when we got there, he went off with a tranny.
What? You mean a transvestite?
No, a transit van, you know, and it was full of gear, you know. There was guitars and amplifiers and stuff, and it was handy at the time because we needed that type of thing. And so we took it, you know, because, you know, we were musicians, but we weren't very rich. And so it all came in handy.
But we knew that we were different, and this was taking us to a whole new sphere.
So what was the boys' appearance like in those days, Mr. Williams? Can you remember?
They were scruffy, very scruffy. In fact, how they got past bonfire nights each year, I'll never know. But I do remember the first booking I got for them, and John Lennon got £2 for it. And I said to him, "What you going to do with that?" And he said, "I'm going to put it where no one will find it." And I said, "Well, why don't you put it under your soap?" Very, very dirty and very scruffy indeed.
So, George Martin, why do you think Pete Best was sacked?
Well, I personally think it was because he formed the Pete Best combo, and I don't think the other boys were too impressed by that. I think, they weren't very happy when they found out, and he was supposed to be in the Beatles, and he was forming this other group called the Pete Best combo, and I don't think that was very, very nice.
But didn't he form the Pete Best combo after he was sacked?
I never realised that, but yes, I think you're right. Can he be reinstated? Can he?
So, Brian, when you first heard the boys, were you immediately taken in by them?
Yes, I was. And I remember I went home to Queenie and I said, "Queenie, I've seen these boys, wonderful boys, and I think I want to manage them." And it was...
Ah, Queenie. Is that your mother?
No, Queenie, Freddie Mercury. I was sharing an apartment with him in Liverpool at the time. And he was very, very happy I'd found the boys.
So, Freddie Mercury, can you remember the first time you heard the Beatles? And what effect did it have on you?
Well, I thought they were different. Yes, I did like that, I must say. And they had plenty of oomph, and it was different. It was so nice at that time,
So you mean something you could get your teeth into?
Yes, I suppose so, yes.
It gave you something to chew on, did it?
What are you insinuating?
So when did you first realise that the boys were getting tired of you?
Well, there was little things I just realised that they were getting tired of me, There were just little things that they were doing that made me realise that they wanted me out, just...
Such as?
Well, for instance, if I went round to John's house, his Aunt Mimi would scrub out the letters on the welcome mat. Different things like that made me realise. And then, of course, they went and got Epi. And, of course, that changed...
Do you mean Brian Epstein?
No, I don't mean him. I mean Epi, who was Pete Best's mate. He suffered from epileptic fits, and he didn't even last for 5 minutes, to be honest with you. It was a bloody waste of time.
Can you remember the first time you ever seen the Beatles?
Yes, it was at the Cavern Club in Liverpool, and I was immediately drawn to John Lennon. I thought he had the most beautiful semi. Best semi I've ever seen.
A semi?
Yes, a semi-detached house. He lived there with his Auntie Mimi. It was wonderful. Wonderful.
Oh, hello, you must be Brian Epstein.
Yes, and you must be Paul.
I'm John.
Erection. I mean correction, John.
So, John, can you tell us what the cavern was like in those early days?
It was filthy and full of strangers, A bit like your house. Okay.
Isn't it true, George, that you were sent back home to Liverpool from Hamburg?
Yeah, I was sent home for being underage. Yeah.
Underage for what?
Underage for Hamburg.
So how come you weren't underage for Liverpool?
Oh yeah, never thought of that one. Crazy. And it was in 1961 that a guy called Raymond Jones went into Brian's record shop in Liverpool and asked for a song that we'd done in Hamburg called My Barney, which was about a cuddly burr.
When I heard about it, I had to have it, because I've always been a big fan of teddy bears, you know what I mean? Haven't I? Yeah, you have. See, told you.
My Barney, he doesn't have emotions. My Barney, he doesn't make a scene.
was crazy, you know. I mean, we did anything, you know. But I mean, what kind of a musician would do a song about a bear, you know?
Do you think you were hard done by not being allowed to stay in the group?
Okay, I might say yes.
So, do you think you could have done any of the things that Ringo did in subsequent years?
Okay, I'd say yes, is the answer to that.
Thomas the Tank Engine?
Okay, I'd say yes.
So would you like to have a little go now?
Okay.
Thomas, the effeminate tank engine, rolled into the station. Okay. Puff, 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 said the fat controller. I'll show you gob you fat controller, said Thomas. Okay.
Well, in the early days, the boys were just a duo. And they were called Looseniks and Arsenic and Old Lace. And they wrote songs such as, what's this thing called, love? What's this thing called, love? And also, how can I leave her behind alone? How can I leave her behind alone? But it was always John who came up with the rockers, and Paul who came up with the bowl full of salad. So full of ballad.
Well, somebody said, you know, let's get Starr in the group, you know, and the only Starr I knew was Freddie Starr, you know, so I asked him.
On the one hand, I was quite pleased, you know, but on the other hand, I've got 4 fingers and a thumb. So anyway, then John and I went round to Ringo's house.
So Ringo, when did you first find out that the boys wanted you in the group?
Well, I was sitting at home watching TV, you know, and the doorbell went. Because they'll nick anything round our way. And it was John and Paul. You know, they were standing there. And I said to them, no autographs. You know, this is a warning, you know. And they said, are you in? And I said, of course I am. I'm answering the door. So then Brian Epstein, he said, shave your beard off and comb your hair forward and wear this dress. Which I thought, you know, was a bit strange.
Tits like coconuts, yeah. Or seed, you know, just throw them out some seed, you know. They like that as well, you know. Sorry.
So, Paul, was John a bit of a rebel when you met him?
Yeah, I mean, he was always, you know, getting into trouble with the police, yeah.
So he was always being picked up by the fuzz, was he?
Yeah. I wondered why he always had tears in his eyes.
So, Bill, John was a bit of a prankster, wasn't he, in the early days? Yes, I remember once he gave me a book called The Happy Hooker. And I was halfway through it before I realised it wasn't about fishing. Did you feel hysterical? No, I never laid a finger on him ever. You know, it was all rumours, you know.
You know, because I was the Beatles road manager, you know, I used to have to drive them around everywhere, you know, and I remember once we were trying to find the Aintree Institute. We couldn't find it, and I said to this guy, I said, where is he, you know, and he said, well, carry on to the lights, and, you know, turn right, carry on to the next turn right, go down junction, turn right, traffic lights, turn right, and go down for about 300 yards, and you should be able to find it, you know. And I said to him, I said, hang on a minute, I said, if we do that, you know, we'll end up back here. And he said, yeah, I know. He said, the Aintree Institute is just across the road, you know.
So we had our little group, you know. So all we needed to do now was conquer England, you know. That was all important, you know. We knew we were going to be big, okay?
Can I get you a drink at all, John?
Yeah, okay, I'll have a Coke with a whiskey.
Okay, so that's a Coca-Cola and Scotch. I do apologise. I'll be back in a tick.